Hey, welcome to the ANU Indonesia Project Global Seminar. My name is Arianto Patundru, and I'm hosting this program with Lidiana Pitupulu and Nesita Anggraini. We acknowledge the first Australians and pay our respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. We are grateful for the support from the Australian National University and the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Today's webinar is part of our series on economic development, and we will be talking about the results from a digital merchant survey conducted by a team from the World Bank and Shopee. We have had them presenting the results from the earlier round also in this forum, and today they will talk about the second round's findings. Among all, they will discuss about childcare issues, financial literacy, and also knowledge and skill needs. We have three guests. They're the authors of the report. Putu Sanjiwacika Wibisana will report the findings. He is a consultant with the World Bank's Poverty and Equity team. Then we also have Monica Wihardja, formerly an economist at the World Bank and now with the ISEAS-Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore. And last but not least, we also have Santitarn Sathirathai, the Chief Economist of C, and a leading global consumer internet company whose business includes Shopee, one of the largest e-commerce platforms in Southeast Asia. As usual, we will have a Q&A session after the talks, but if you want, you can write your question anytime on the Q&A box, not on the chat box. We will attend to them after the presentations, and please also kindly respond to the little polling on your screen because we will need it to improve our series. Thank you. And so without further ado, let me invite Pak Sanji to start the seminar. Go ahead, Pak Sanji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Jo, for introducing us. Let me start first with sharing my PowerPoint. Okay, so okay, I think it shows up already. Okay, so yeah, again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Thank you for coming to this webinar. My name is Putu Sanjiwacika. I work as a consultant in the World Bank, Indonesia Poverty and Equity team. In this great occasion, I would like to represent our team on presenting our latest work, the result of the collaboration between the World Bank and C Insights, which is the second round of COVID-19 Digital Merchant Survey. As Pak Jo has already mentioned, this is the second iteration of our COVID-19 Digital Merchant Survey. And in this study, in this particular round, we explore further on how we can unlock the full potential of digital merchants to thrive in the e-commerce business. Before that, let me provide some brief about the current survey that we have right now. So our COVID-19 Digital Merchant Survey has already in our second iteration. In the survey, we explore the issues faced by online merchants on their work on e-commerce. So our survey is an online one, targeting the merchants of Shopee, one of the major e-commerce platform in Indonesia. The survey was distributed through Shopee in-app, where merchants receive notifications that direct them to some kind of links where they can fill the survey questionnaire. So probably if one of you are using Shopee as a merchant, you probably have received this one of the notifications. And the questionnaire itself is on average was 20-minute length, and it was distributed between February 24th and March 8th last year, 2022. From the survey, we obtained 17,000 plus respondents, which is nationally representative of Shopee seller population in Indonesia. Now I will continue discussing the result and what do we find regarding on what do we find in our survey. So just to begin with, e-commerce, we can say it's an inclusive landscape where people from various demographic background is represented in it, and everybody can participate basically as an online entrepreneurs. In our survey itself, we found that sellers come from various age group, gender, educational background, and activities. So starting with the age distributions, majority of them are coming from young adults whose age from 25 to 34 years old, and some also others like they are coming from younger ages, like 15 to 24-year-old, and even older people like 40 to 54-year-old, and even pensioners are exist in this e-commerce platform. And talking on gender distribution, the gender share is relatively balanced, while it is slightly skewed toward the female at 54% compared to male at 46%. And merchants, in terms of education, are also found to be relatively more educated than the labor force in general in Indonesia, with 36% of them has completed at least tertiary education, and 53% is high school graduate. And looking at their main activity apart from online selling, e-commerce is found to be highly appealing, especially for those who are already self-employed or is a homemaker. And this presumably as a form of supplementary income source and channel for participating in the labor market. And last but not least, e-commerce has also students participating in it, although the share is relatively small at 5%. And the popularity of e-commerce as a source of supplementary income is increasing. This trend is especially during the pandemic years, where we see a lot of move toward online trends, both on buyers and seller side. And why is that? So existing business need to adapt to the new normal norm, where people are starting to buy things online, and every transaction has moved online from offline, while those who lost their jobs were also looking for alternative income sources. From the seller's perspective, in which we capture here in our survey, we found that e-commerce is a relatively stable source of income during the pandemic, which provide merchants with some degree of economic resilience. So on the left-hand side graph here, we can see that compared to 86% of firms that report the decrease of sales during the pandemic, only 16% of Shopee's online merchants experience decreasing sales. While at the same time, if we look at the whole Shopee merchants, almost 70% of merchants have their sales level relatively stable. So in terms of resilience, the majority of e-commerce merchants has experienced this kind of resilience amidst of the economic downturn during the pandemic. And given some degree of economic resilience it's provide, it does seem that e-commerce merchants are looking forward to spend more time working in e-commerce. So when we are asking this e-commerce merchant, they said that majority of merchants stated they want to spend more time in online businesses, but somehow they face constraints of doing so. So around 83% of merchants, they say they would spend more time, but due to some reason, in which this reason we are going to discuss in this presentation, they were unable to do so. And furthermore, not all merchants are actually thriving. Some of them are actually becoming inactive. Around 21% of merchants are dormant, meaning that they are not actively trying to sell online. Okay, so inactive merchants, among these inactive merchants, they report that they lack of working capital, busy with other works, or discouraged due to lack of sales. So given that e-commerce has provided some kind of resilience during the pandemic, but actually not all of those merchants are thriving. Some of them face time constraint, some of them become dormant. And that's the question that we want to answer in the second round COVID-19 Digital Merchant Survey, which we focus on the question of identifying key challenges faced by e-commerce merchants. What do actually make them, what kind of time constraints that they face, what makes them dormant? In this study, we managed to identify three main key challenges faced by e-commerce merchants, which is first, the time constraints. The second issue is related to financing. And lastly, we also found that merchants could fare better if they obtain better business knowledge and digital skills. In the upcoming sections, we will discuss each of these three key challenges. So to begin with, we start with the first issue, which is the time constraint. And as we have already mentioned in the earlier slide, most merchants are actually wanting to spend more time in e-commerce, but they face some kind of constraints on doing so. Given that, the raising question would be how much time they actually already spend in selling online. So we found that it appears that most merchants are still spending time in e-commerce or a comparable length as a part-time jobs, or somewhere around less than 6 hours per day. So 55% of them are actually working on a time comparable to a part-time job. At the same time, it appears that if you see in the right-hand side graph here, it appears that merchants who spend more time fare better in terms of annual sales. So looking at this correlation here, the more time a merchant spend working on e-commerce, the more likely that they will record better annual sales. So we could see that merchants who can focus working on this e-commerce by spending more time daily, they will have better chances to record higher sales level. Although not all of these merchants are actually wanting to spend more time, but as we have found in a previous slide, as we have shown, 83% actually want to spend more time. So there is some barrier that they are facing here. The question would be why those who want to spend more time they are unable to do so. So we asked those who want to spend their time the reason of inability to spend more time. So, or what is their constraints on spending time more in e-commerce. So first, non-e-commerce work is cited as the top reason, cited by 39% of the merchants, which again emphasize the position of e-commerce as a source of supplementary income. And this is followed by the childcare responsibilities, which is experienced by 1 out of 4 merchants, or close to 25% of merchants. They have some kind of childcare responsibilities to bear at home, and followed by studying or other educational activities, internet issues, and others. Here, we pay particular attention to the childcare issues due to its peculiar nature. And why is that? So first, the first reason, non-e-commerce work. When we talk about non-e-commerce work, it's a clear substitute to e-commerce as an income-generating activities. So people basically choosing between working on e-commerce or non-e-commerce. It has some kind of clear substitute there. But at the same time, if we are talking about caring for children, this is some kind of a form of unpaid labor, which means that there is an economic opportunity cost faced by merchants by having these childcare responsibilities here, while at the same time they want to spend more time working on e-commerce. And one of the concern also on childcare responsibilities, this issue has already having some kind of gender dimension imbued in it. So in Indonesia, as childcare is a more commonly woman's responsibility rather than male, this issue is also found to disproportionately impact female merchants more rather than male. So around 35% of merchants cite childcare as one of their constraints, compared to 10% of males that report the same thing. And subsequently, because of these childcare issues, this have led around 15% of merchants to turn down their business opportunities at some point. When we asked them what was their main challenge on childcare, they said that it revolves largely on around finding childcare support that is high quality and affordable at the same time for all merchants of different backgrounds. And by the term childcare here, we do not limit this term into a daycare service, but any kind of childcare in general. It could be also like informal ones, families, neighbors, and community-based one. So so merchants who are looking forward to spend more time, they have difficulties to find a substitute to their childcare in terms of childcare services. So let us move on to the next issue, which is the financing issue. We have found that also financing has also become one hurdle for merchants to expand their businesses. So when they start to run their businesses, e-commerce merchants, just like other businesses, they require fundings. And this why we are concerned on this with this aspect is that the type of financing that they're actually choosing could impact their businesses differently. So for example, loans imply additional monetary costs toward businesses through interest rate and principal payment. So this means that they have less margin or running their businesses, and definitely less for further investments. And in our survey, we found that merchants do rely on different sorts of funds, with saving is one of the most popular form of funding at 74%, and followed by loans as the second most popular source of funds at around 22% of merchants. And this graph on the left-hand side here, it's not mutually exclusive. So in our survey, it's actually respondents are able to answer multiple choices. So they can also have source of fund both from loans and saving, or the combination of any of this list. So, but after savings, after personal saving, we see that loans are the second most popular one. So we take a look deeper at the what kind of loans that actually used by digital merchants, and we found that loan from fintech or digital loans are the most popular type of loans chosen by merchants, even more than loan from commercial banks or other type of loans. So around 9% of merchants have used fintech loan to fund their businesses. And given that the links between e-commerce and digital finance that we have seen, we then put our focus more on the digital loans and why merchants. So we are asking questions on why merchants do not take it, and for those who take the digital loan, how they use it. So the popularity of digital or fintech loans is, as we've seen before, is actually sure a good signal for financial inclusion. But from what we have found, it may not have been reaching its full potential on helping businesses yet. So first, we asked those who did not take digital loans of the reason not to do so. So around 4 out of 10 say, or close to 39% actually say that they do not need one. But however, the rest of these merchants say that cites high cost of loans in form of high interest rate and lack of understanding or awareness of the product as one of the main causes on why they are not taking digital loans. And this could mean that cost of digital loans are not yet competitive as their alternative, while merchants are also probably not yet aware of the existence of the product and type, since it's relatively newer and not yet seen a widespread use. And moving on to those who have taken loans, most of them fortunately use the fund for buying more inventory, which is something directly related to productivity aspect of an e-commerce, and also to pay rent, to do additional marketing, to invest. Like 9% of them are actually putting this debt to good investment use, but not all of them are actually using this for productive use, as we have found that 22%, 1 of 5 merchants, are actually using these online debts digital financing product from digital financing for their own personal expenses, not for their business purposes. And also, more concerning, 14% actually use this to pay off other debt, which means that this can add these two things can add unnecessary burden to business, where the business, the online shop that they run, has to pay loans that does not contribute to business operation, and even worse, this keep them trapped in some kind of debt vicious cycle. Lastly, we also explore the issues around business knowledge and digital skills, and how it relates to the sales performance of online merchants. So to do this, we observe the change in sales level across periods during the pandemic, as we did in the first COVID-19 digital merchant survey too. But at this round, we compare it across the annual years, because we did this in February. We have the data between for the whole year in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and observe the dynamics of the sales level. At the same time, we also, on top of asking their level of sales, we also ask merchants whether they apply a list of commonly used online business strategies during the period. So this includes price adjustments, improving customer services, doing inventory management, improve on copywriting, and engage in any kind of e-commerce related self-development activities. So our analysis found that there is no kind of one-size-fits-all recipe when it comes to improving sales. So there's no one magic recipe. So choosing between these 5 that contributes to improvement in sales across all the periods. So as we can see here in the graph, you see on the left-hand side, between 2019 and 2020, the most popular strategy, or the one that explains improvement in sales, are actually customer service. So those merchants who are actually providing a good customer service will perform better, while on later year of the pandemic, between 2020 and 2021, those who are actually adjusting their own prices are performing better in terms of annual sales. So different strategy work differently in a different period. And why so? We thought we have some hypotheses on this. So first, during the first earlier year of the pandemic, the existence of new buyer and their need to adapt to the existence of new buyer means that they have to adapt somehow from the from their customs on purchasing offline to move to online channels. And this has for some people, this leads them to like lost the experience of offline transaction. And a good customer service would help on creating some kind of environment similar to offline purchases, which help new buyer to adapt to online purchases. But this landscape is changing later on during the mid-year of the pandemic, while a lot of new merchants were starting to enter the landscape. But at the same time, in this period, people are already accustomed to buy things online and starting to know how to look for cheapest item, for example, for an identical goods. So now the key to improving sales is pricing strategy, just like perfect competition market. As we can see in the right-hand side figure here, price adjustments or pricing strategies explain the positive change of sales that we found. And what's the takeaway point from all of these exercises? That in e-commerce, this difference in strategy works. So how dynamic the e-commerce landscape is. It means that it changes over time and actually favors those who are able to adapt to the ever-changing circumstances of the landscape. So there is no such thing as one size fit all strategy. You cannot expect like one strategy to work over time similarly and yield a positive result over time. So Okay. So from the last slide, the takeaway point is that the ability to adapt is essential to business sustainability, especially in e-commerce. And this ability is built upon learning and experience. In a separate statistical test that we have conducted as well, so we confirmed that merchants who had prior learning or they do develop their skills prior to jumping in e-commerce are actually record higher annual sales rather than those who are not so prepared. So what about the e-commerce merchant in general? Are they prepared enough prior to jumping and selling online? So we found that most merchants, fortunately, 66% of them have some preparation before jumping to e-commerce landscape, as we can see in the left-hand side graph here. So the type of preparations that they have is actually varying. So some of them choose to have unpaid private mentoring. This means that mentoring by family or friends or other colleagues, and also followed by self-learning process like reading online or offline resources. And only few of them like attending online courses or offline seminars or workshops, community meetings, or any kind of paid mentorings. But this also means that 34% of the merchants never have prior learning on e-commerce business, despite 80% of them are already having some sort of work experience prior to sell online. So we found that not all merchants are actually well prepared to sell online, and this probably also could explain the heterogeneity of performance of offline merchants. So this may explain why some of them are performing well, some of them are not so, because of the different degree of preparations that they choose. And when we are asking them what do merchants actually need in order to help them selling online, among all merchants, help with sales and marketing are the most popular type of assistance wanted, and followed by better internet access in form of affordable and reliable connection. And the third most popular are assistance related to digital skills and knowledge training, followed by cheaper logistics and incentives. This is also consistent with earlier findings that we've shown in the previous slides, that lack of fund to buy inputs was cited as one of the key constraints that make some of the merchants are dormant. To sum up, amidst the boom of e-commerce and its inclusive opportunities over to entrepreneurs, unfortunately, not all of the online entrepreneurs are thriving. So many of them are still needs to address issues related to time constraint, finance, business, and of course, improving their own digital skills. These three constraints that we sum up from our survey also can also use to be highlighting the key policy priority areas that needs to be focused for helping digital merchants. So firstly, childcare responsibilities definitely generate opportunity costs to be more involved in e-commerce, especially for merchants who want to spend more time selling online. So this is by saying this, we do not mean that the importance of childcare responsibility is not important. So definitely, childcare responsibility is a crucial part of the society, but workers in general would be better off if they can have some sort of options that can help them choose better between participating more in the labor market and their childcare responsibilities. So not doing this thing by force. And to do this, policies could be directed on providing affordable and high quality childcare. I think this issue is not so exclusively only for online merchants, but for workers in general. But we have seen it. This is something that e-commerce merchant has voiced their concern on. And Secondly, on the issues on awareness, literacy and non-productive use hamper the effectiveness of financial products. We are talking especially digital loans on helping businesses here. So ensuring that merchants understand the existing financial products available will open up more options for them on means to expand their businesses. So they are not solely limited to their savings or conventional type of loans. But when they have more options, they can explore better and choose better on what will work the best for their current businesses. And on top of that, on top of making this product more available for merchants, training programs can also focus on improving the merchants' understanding on how to manage loans, especially to avoid non-productive uses such as personal expenses and paying off other debt, which can trap people in debt vicious cycle. So, for example, bookkeeping training may be essential to make people to understand why it's important to separate personal and business accounting. And lastly, program could also be directed to improve business knowledge and skills of digital merchants. This is also related to the second one. But as we have seen, because of this dynamic nature in the e-commerce landscape, upskilling program should be directed to improve entrepreneurship mindset, which includes like ability to identify trends and the ability to adapt to changes and building resilience of businesses rather than being prescriptive on certain business practices. Definitely, these three suggestions are just suggested policy areas that we are proposing. And to know the answer on what policies are exactly needed, it will definitely require more thorough study. But nevertheless, we hope that this study can open up new avenues on research, especially on e-commerce business, and contribute to the policy discussion on how we can unlock the full potential of our digital merchants as one of the key actors to our digital economy. Okay, so I would like to say thanks for seeing our presentation, and I would like to return the floor to Pak Acho. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanji, for the very nice and interesting presentations. So let's now move to question and answer session. So if anyone has question, you can type your question in the Q&A box, or you can just raise your virtual hand, and then we will call you for you to say directly to the speaker. So anyone has questions? Oh, for your information also, especially for you who come a bit late, we also have Monica Wihardja here and Santitarn Sathirathai. They're also the co-authors of the report, and they're ready to respond to your questions or comments as well. Any question? I see some friends in the attendance. Mas Siwage or Pak Manggi Habir, and also we have Sherry Talkong. Oh, Sherry, okay. Over to you, Sherry.
Great, thank you, Joe. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a wonderful seminar once again on a very interesting topic. Congratulations to the team. I'm really interested in this topic because we are doing something similar about the Chinese business, mainly in small and micro business owners, especially about how digitalization has, to some extent, helped them weather through the terrible long COVID period. About the report, could I ask one question and also two questions, if I may? The first one, I don't know if I missed something, or Sanji may be able to help me understand this better. So, do most of the online merchants do these e-businesses as their main form of employment or main job, or main source of income, or they do it on the side, or they use it as a sort of experiment or trial to explore new way of generating income, or to what extent they are actually, shifting from offline form of business to online operation. And what are the sort of determinants? Say maybe it's the sector they are working in, or the prevailing conditions that they are facing, that determines this kind of choices. Yeah. And this is the first question about a form of employment. The second one is I'm really keen to hear more about the three areas of constraints: time, financing, and skills. I see in China that a lot of these things, time is largely a household decision, but in terms of financing and skills, as what you have mentioned towards the end of your talk, the platform or the businesses that are sort of helping or providing the digital infrastructure of these merchants are actually playing a very big role, be it digital financing options based on their sales performance. Basically, what we call is like using data as credit. Yeah, we're not using collaterals. So this is a very effective and timely innovative way of providing inclusive digital finance. And the other is skill and digital literacy education. And all this can be very effectively and actively provided by the platform. So our platforms are doing that in Indonesia. And with these two constraints, financing and skills improved, and I can see specialization, in terms of digital operation is improving, and then that will in turn to some extent help with the time constraint. So I would really like you to say a little bit more about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sherry. So Sherry is participating from Beijing. So over to the authors. Anyone wants to respond to those questions? Monica?
Yeah, sure. Maybe Sanji and Santi can chime in later on. But regarding your first question, Sherry, I just pulled out actually our finding from the first round of the survey. It asked the question whether online selling is their primary or main income, and 74.1% said yes, 26% said no. So we are still seeing that for the majority of merchants, like online sellings, whether it's on Shopee platform or other platforms, is still their main source of income. But as you can see from this presentation earlier on, that like a high percentage of merchants spend less than 6 hours a day on e-commerce. So that says that even though it's like their primary income, but they're basically working part-time, less than 6 hours a day. And
sorry, Monica, can I
yes.
follow up on that point? So do we know what the main jobs of these merchants actually are?
So as already mentioned in the presentation, that their time is constrained by first other paid jobs, right? So I think besides e-commerce, they also have other paid works, whether it's part-time or other full-time jobs, right? And then the second is they're also constraints by childcare responsibility. Remember, 54% of the merchants are female. And also one of our earlier studies show that a lot of these women use e-commerce to go back to the labor market after they quit or after they leave their previous work because of pregnancy or other domestic work. So yeah, so it's not surprising that their time is constrained by childcare responsibility, especially for female merchants.
Monica, can I jump in to just
Sure.
confirm when you say basically 74% of respondents said that this is their main source of income? Is that possible that they consider digital business or online e-commerce business is generating most of their personal income rather than their household income?
Yes. Can I share screen, Pak Aco?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me share screen. So I have this. So can you see? So this is from our first round of survey. As you can see, actually 59.2% of the merchants are not. 41% of the merchants are not primary earners or breadwinners in the household, but they're 75% using e-commerce as their primary or main income.
So
and that's primarily
that's
perhaps
a large
because
percentage. Yeah. It's a pretty large. That's half of them is basically main breadwinners, and then if we consider the, I don't know, the cross distribution, how it looks like, but you would think a big chunk of them would rely on e-commerce.
Yes, that's actually one of our income. Yes, that's actually one of my findings. Why we need to help improve the performance of these merchants, because it's their primary income, and for many of them, they're also the primary earners or breadwinners in the household.
Right.
But this is very this is very interesting, Monica and Sherry, because I think this is also subject to the time when this was done in the survey, right?
Yes.
I think for the first round, it was really because of they didn't have much choice, because there was restriction, lockdown policy. So some of them actually were forced to do this because of the situation, right? But your second round, it's pretty relaxed in terms of restrictions. So does that have any bearing on the results?
I don't know how. Maybe Santi can shed lights on this about the dynamics of the merchants, right? Like, I guess, like how many of them were actually merchants who joined during the COVID-19 in our second round, and I think also perhaps Sanji has some statistics on that.
Yeah, thanks very much for the questions. It's really really good questions in all three. I'll try to touch on each one, and then perhaps the more part about the data itself, maybe Sanjay can help add to that. But I think on the first one, right, around the entrepreneurs, what are the main jobs and these issues, I think it's really important to understand that it's a very dynamic process, I think. So you rightly point out that different point in time, we have different reasons why they join the platform or become digital merchants. So initially, they may join it because the economic because of the economy is actually essentially closed down, so they're forced to join. But as time goes by, you start to see some probably selection effects there as well, where you would only continue to become digital merchants if you're doing reasonably well on that. And of course, you could also have another opposite where you start to do more and more digital merchants because actually you find that this is a really reliable source of income and you're seeing good growth from that. And so it can turn from being not a primary source of income to gradually becoming primary source of income. It can potentially even shift in some case where you see they're not a primary earner of the household, but become primary earner of a household if the business is taking off and doing well. And I think that's what we start to see in this second round, which is interesting, with many of them doing well. to the point that they start to enter these, have these constraints, which are in some ways the victim of their own success, right? Which is, do I have enough capital to expand my business further? Do we have enough time? You won't have these problems if your business is really not successful. You just quit and you just become dormant. But because you're doing well, that's why you run into these issues. And that, I think, lead me to another question, which I think your last question around digital skills, which I think is really important. The short answer is yes. I think platforms do provide a lot of trainings. And over the past few years, what has happened to that is that, our own platform, but I think other platforms as well, is we're going more and more down to the kind of local level, village level, setting up different SME centers to train digital skills. And a couple things that we learned from that process, two things in particular. One is that there's a differentiation needed into better targeting, because different groups really require different kind of skill support. And it's linked to the point where they're coming from. If there are already existing SMEs doing offline business and they're doing digital for the first time, their weakness tend to be on a kind of digital literacy skill, how to use apps effectively. So you have to focus on those kind of modules. If they are joining from, say, their students, homemakers in the past, or they're relatively young, so the digital savviness is already there, but they may be weak in terms of their kind of business management skills, then you got to focus on the business management kind of modules. These skills, I think, as the study alluded, very importantly, is that the skills required also change over time as the life cycle of entrepreneurs goes on. At the beginning, you might require a certain set of skills only, just know basic things, and you can get a good pricing strategy, and you can get your stores running, your sales goes up. But over time, whether customers come back to you will depend on your quality of customer service, your reliability, and these things, which also came out in the studies. Those require different set of skills. And last but not least, you asked a question about financing. Again, yes, using data as collateral, alternative credit scoring, digital lending has become very important. And I think what it leads to is that there's a strong linkage here between digital inclusion and financial inclusion. So once you expand your digital footprints, this allows you to have more data, which allows you to more get financial lending, digital lending, as of new forms of accessing financing. And that, in turn, allows you to expand your shops, your presence online, which then expand your digital footprint further. So there is a potential virtuous circle that you can get into if you get these two mixed right. So that'll be my comments on the three questions.
Okay, thanks, Santi. Let me now read questions from Pak Manggi Habir before I turn to Owage. So Pak Manggi has two questions. First one is, how does buy now, pay later facilities provided by e-commerce and fintechs impact sales? If it helps, how much is the impact? That's the first question. The second one is, he wants to know what sectors did the survey cover. Was it heavily consumer products and food and beverage plus pharmaceuticals or other sectors? So over to you, maybe Sanji first.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Ajo. So I would like to start with maybe the sectors of this of the merchants that we are surveying. So let me reshare my screen. So I would like to show. Okay. So yeah, so to answer the questions on sectors, in the way that we, so what the results, I forgot to mention that all the results that you have seen in the presentations that we have seen earlier, this statistical result has already been weighted. So it has been accommodating the weights of the overall Shopee population. And during the weighting process, we also we do a procedure called the calibration rate weighting techniques, and it represents the population in terms of three characteristics. So first, the provincial location of the respondents. So it's representative at province level. Also on the November 2021 sales on Shopee. So we use this as a proxy for online business size. So we ensure that the results from our survey also represents the size of each of the merchants according to the seller, according to the sales level. So for example, sellers with a higher levels of sales are also represented adequately, as well as those who are with a lower level of sales. And the last one also on the highest selling product category on November 2021. So in this highest selling product category, we compare we make sure that merchants for each of the product category that we have, it's available in the platform, is well represented given the type of products that's being sold by the seller. So this means that our sample is also representative of any kind of products that is available in the Shopee platform. So yeah, we can say that our survey is representative of all of these product categories, but again, it's weighted on based on the size of the sales in total in terms of each of the product category. So for example, say that the most popular product category during November 2021, let's say food and beverages, let's say that it takes up, let's say that hypothetically it takes up like 30% of the total sales in Shopee. So 30% of the merchants are also based on 30% of the merchants are those who are having this food and beverage category as their highest selling product category. So so yeah, we can say it's well represented. And okay, I would like to see. Okay, I think yeah, for the question on the how buy now pay later facilities, I think Santi can shed some lights on that.
Okay, Santi.
Hi, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's really a bit beyond kind of the scope of the study, because, you know, the BNPL, that part, I think is more between kind of the buyers and the seller side. And a lot of our studies here focus on the sellers performance there. So, but I think, so it's not going to be directly from the data here, but I think in general, the idea or the theory is that it potentially can help sales for some of the merchants that offer this type of payments. And the reason for that is it helps alleviate some of the liquidity constraints for the consumers, right? So if consumers want to buy some products, but they have some liquidity constraints, some cash constraints, then BNPL would allow them to basically separate that into different installments so that they can alleviate that and they can still purchase the products. So I think that's step one. Step two, I think, is that it's not the BNPL itself, but it's also the nature it is, because it is a kind of digital lending. So you would use kind of a digital footprints and data that we just talk about, alternative data. So that means that you are expanding credit to the people who may traditionally not able to receive credits. So you're eliminating, you're reducing the liquidity constraints for those who are previously underserved by the traditional kind of banking sectors who may require collateral. So I think that's another area where you can increase not just, you know, both kind of people who may not initially buy, but also the extent to which the intensive margin, so you know how much they can buy as well. And I think thirdly, that matters as well. It's probably less for kind of, you know, platform, e-commerce platform business. But I think if you talk about BNPL players in general that work with a lot of offline merchants as well, what I understand is that sometimes it helps improve sales because it increases visibility of these merchants as well. So once they get on a kind of BNPL type of apps, of services, then there's a lot of kind of ways that these players can help redirect traffic or increase visibility of these shops beyond, which might not be available for these offline merchants. So it's not just about boosting sales from limiting liquidity constraint, but about increasing visibility as well.
Okay. Thank you. Let's now invite Mas Wage to ask his question.
Yes, thank you, Pak Acho, and congratulations to the team for this excellent and very important study. Yeah, I joined a bit late, so I may have missed some of the presentation or information that you may have. So two questions. The first one is whether you have information about the type of products being sold by the merchant. So the reason why I ask about this question is because as we know that the Indonesian government would like to promote the local products, right? And we are wondering whether the seller is actually selling more local products than imported products, and whether they also produce their own products or they just resell whatever products that they get from the market. So they use the third party and then they resell the products. So I just would like to get this the kind of information about how usually they get the products that they sell. The second question, I think you conclude that in the data that most of the merchants mostly are female, right? For the e-commerce. And I know that overall in Indonesia, the female labor market participation is relatively low, but in e-commerce, actually there are more female dominated this sector than the male merchant. So I wonder whether the same trends is also similar in other countries in Southeast Asia. So yeah, perhaps that the two questions that I would like to raise to the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Wage. I think for the first question, if Sanji can respond to that, but maybe first we go back to Monica to respond to the second question about the gender aspect. I understand that we already had a seminar on this particular aspect by Monica some time ago, but maybe there is some new insights from your current round. So go ahead, Monica.
Sure. Can I share a slide, Pak Acho?
Sure.
So as you can see from this slide, Wage, that
is
I
it
guess,
possible
yeah.
to enlarge it, Monica? It's too small.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Is it better? Okay.
Yeah.
So as Sanji already mentioned, that our survey is representative at the sectoral level, because of the way the weightings is basically being done. But then we also in our first round of the survey, we did this gender study, like just focusing on the difference between male and female merchants, and we found that female merchants self-select into traditionally feminine products. So as you can see on the graph, for example, for care and beauty, it's very much like not female dominated, but 24% of female merchants sell care and beauty products compared to only 8.3% of male merchants, for example. And let's see, souvenirs and health are more gender neutrals, and things like camera and photography, men's fashion, even like automotive cars, computer accessories are pretty much like male clustered products, where their higher percentage of male merchants who sell these products compared to female merchants. So I don't know if I have I don't think we have the distributions of the products for the whole population, because it's a confidential information for Shopee. But I guess what I can also share here is, you know, what kind of products like merchants switched into during COVID, and the most popular products categories to switch into after merchants switches out of a product category during COVID is health, women's fashion, F&B, care and beauty, and home care. And your question about whether it's, how many percent of their products come from domestic productions vis-a-vis imported products. We have that information, but I need to look for it. But it's very hard to actually analyze, which products are actually imported and which products actually come from local productions, because a lot of imported products are sold by retailers or distributors in the country, right? So merchants could say they buy the products domestically, but they are actually imported products. So that makes it hard to analyze. So I guess, in terms of trend, I guess your questions is like whether female-dominated trends in e-commerce is also happening in other countries. I know in China, Sherry can shed light on this as well. But I know on Alibaba platforms, it's pretty much like half-half between male and female merchants, and that's much higher than the share of female workers in the whole workforce in China.
Thanks, Monica. I think Wage's first question has also been answered, but you, unless Sanji has something to add, or Santi?
Yeah, no, definitely. I can definitely add on that. I think, again, the part about import seller, whether the trader or the producers manufacturing, producing products, I think it's also quite a dynamic process. So I think what you see sometimes is that you might join a platform as someone who just see opportunities to become like a trader, essentially, right? Find source some low cost products and then start selling on a platform first. But then once you start to kind of see that there's a strong demand for certain products and that it might be actually worth having your own production lines on that, so that can be cheaper, and over time, then you start investing and you kind of almost move upstream, and that you become a producer over time as well. So that has happened. The other way around, which I think traditionally we want more to happen, is, well, you're already producers, and now you kind of move downstream to become sellers, so that you can meet customers directly, right? In theory, that's really good. In practice, it's actually hard. And the reasons for that is, and this is quite interesting findings we find not just in Indonesia, but everywhere, is that the mentality when you shift from a manufacturing person to become a B2C, business to consumers, is very, very different. And a lot of manufacturers, producers struggle a lot moving down the value chain to become customer service, sales, and as this study has suggests, the only way you perform well over time is not just having low price, but have great customer service. That's what these manufacturers struggle with a lot. And in our experience, changing that mindset is not easy. Which kind of lead to the point where what can we do? Can they hire someone else? Salesmen, they might have to build a whole new team to do that. So in theory, we want to see more of that. In practice, it seldomly happens. It's quite hard.
Sorry. I was saying that I'm going to read another question, but before that, because I see Wage's hand is still raised. So Wage, do you have a follow-up question?
Sorry, I think I forgot to lower
That's
my
okay.
hand. Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Wage.
for the explanation. Thanks.
All right, thanks. So now let me read a question from Asi Halomoan. Can you please explain more about the loan that merchants obtain? Can you explain about the interest rate, default rate, etc.? So maybe this is to Santi.
Hey, so unfortunately, I don't think I can reveal too much information and data on that because that's beyond the scope of the study. Is also, the confidential information from the business side. But yeah, I think here and also here, I think one thing to note is that we are using the platform as a way to ask the questions to merchants. It doesn't mean that, when they say I take digital loans or fintech, it doesn't mean it's from Shopee. It could be from anyone actually. We're using the platform as a conduit to ask questions to do the survey, but the answer can be from anything, from anywhere. So I think that's a point to note as well. But I think generally, yeah, I think we have seen definitely proliferation of kind of different type of digital lending here, from BNPL type to more kind of SME financing as well. And SME financing, of course, there's kind of the platform types. There's also the type of cash loans. There's also the types where it's more crowdfunding, P2P in nature. So there's loads of different types. Unfortunately, in here, I don't think we kind of separate into different groups, like what are the shares of different types.
Okay. Let's see if there is other. Yeah. Anyone has other questions?
Pacho, maybe I want to add a little bit to Santi's answer. Yeah. This is thank you, Pa Asi, for the questions. And yes, as Santi said, this is quite a little bit beyond our scope of study. But if you're interested on this issue on the default rate or the interest rate of the digital loans, I think there's a study from OJK, so the Indonesian Financial Service Authority, that has done some kind of surveys on the digital loans user. And I think in that report, they also did some kind of calculation on the rate of the non-performing loans and the average rate of interest that they have to pay. And I think I forgot the exact title of the study, but I know that the study existed, and I think you can refer for that for the additional, if that may also help your answering your question.
Thank you, Pak Sanji. Any other question? Let me see. No question. Let me ask, I don't know, maybe this sounds like a dumb question, but how easy or how hard is it to become a digital merchant?
I'll take a stab at that. It's quite easy. And I think the typical journey, I think this may shed light on some of the question earlier as well, is that you start from becoming the buyers first. You start with the consumer. And then over time, you start to see business opportunities and you start to say, well, maybe, I can do this as well. And you turn into sellers. And I think that shed light on some of the question earlier about kind of the gender mix. And the reason why as Monica has shown, the distribution of products in which you have a lot of female merchants and sellers is that those are also where they are the primary consumers. So once they buy something, they know about that products quite well and demand out there, then they turn and become sellers. And this is a change over time that we have seen that's quite interesting because if you go back in the days, the e-commerce used to be very electronics products focused. And so it's much more male dominated. But in the past, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, basically when Shopee came along, the focus is very much shifted to kind of more long tail products, toy, kids and babies, fashion, beauty products, which are much more the type that you have a lot of female buyers. So because of that mix of female buyers, it also led to a greater proportion of female sellers over time as well.
And the policies or regulations, if any, that will be taken care by the platform. So if I were to become a digital merchant, I would just subscribe as consumer first and then gradually become seller or producers. You guys take care of the regulation side. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we help, and I think part of all the training course, onboarding courses, and all of those things helps provide them with the regulations that they have to know, and also kind of like all the knowledge needed from 0 to 1, basically.
Okay, all right.
Pacho, can I add some comments?
Sure.
So I mean, just following up with your questions, right? I think e-commerce is a low entry barrier sector where even like those who don't have like work experience before can enter the labor market, right? And those who leave the labor market because of, let's say, like pregnancies and other domestic constraints can re-enter the labor market through e-commerce. But I just would like to touch upon one other point that Sherry and some other participants have mentioned about the interlink, the closer link between digital inclusion and financial inclusion, right? I think like a key important issue in this like interlinkage is the data privacy protection. It's really like data can be used for better financial inclusion for sure, like digital footprints, right? But we cannot forget that data also needs to be protected. So in Indonesia just passed the data privacy law last year, and I think that's a major breakthrough, for better use of data, for better inclusion, and I guess like a better digital economic growth, right? And also I would like to touch upon the fact that currently ASEAN Indonesia's chairmanship is trying to push to make peer-to-peer lending across ASEAN to be interoperability like wide. So Singaporeans can lend money to MSMEs or like to individuals in Indonesia, which currently apparently have like barriers to do to lend. Now Indonesia has a data privacy that will allow like data to be used right in a safe and secure way. But when we see like a more integrated digital market across ASEAN, other ASEAN country has also to adopt like better data privacy regulations and other regulations such as like security and cybersecurity regulations.
Thank you, Monica, for that point. I see Sherry is still in the audience. Can I, if I may say, I don't want to put you, Sherry, on the spot, but if you can share something about the China's experience on this data privacy. I just read some book from Martin Chorsempa about fintech revolution in China, and then they talk about the data privacy issue when it comes to WeChat and Alipay, and then all this. Can you? Thank you.
Well, sure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. In fact, this is fascinating and quite controversial to some extent topic. The general perception is that Chinese have a somewhat high tolerance about privacy, in the sense like many people either don't know so much about how much their information has been exposed, or like they feel like there's no way out. It has become the way we live. So so much information has already been put out there, and we know very little about how they are being used. But on the other hand, there's also quite a bit of discussion to raise awareness as well as from the regulators' perspective to enforce new laws to provide protections, even when the users themselves are not very aware of how much information has been leaked or used or misused. So this is definitely an area where the policymakers have to balance between promoting or fostering innovation and protecting private information and data security. I think to the best of my knowledge, there's no accurate or statistically sort of rigorous kind of analysis as to how Chinese perceive their privacy issue. But there is a chance, because in the last survey done in 2022, in our national representative survey, I put in some questions to ask our respondent to what extent they are worried about their data privacy when they use mobile payment. Because everybody pay with scanning QR code, basically. So, and that's linked with either Alipay or WeChat Pay. So basically everything's linked. We know wherever you have shopped and basically what. and so I asked respondent how much they are worried about their data privacy and how much they're worried about their fund privacy. So fund safety. So hopefully by the time the data are cleaned and made available to the public, that we will have a glimpse into the general perception of Chinese consumers as to how they perceive this. We call it a digital trust. To what extent they trust these things. Thank
Very
you.
interesting. We hope we can have you here in the seminar series also, Sherry, to share
Thank you.
that survey later on. Okay, I think we almost reach our time limit. So let me give back to the speaker, our panelists, if they want to say last words of today's event, maybe starting from Sanji.
I actually don't have any other thing to add, Pak Acho, but I think there's a question, other question.
Is there still a question?
Yeah, Pak Wage just type a new question here.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see. Okay, there is another question. Actually, two. Okay, let me read them both. From Wage. Wage asks the success or survival rate of digital merchant in Indonesia. Is it higher or lower compared with other countries? That's first question. And then another question from Asi Halomoan again about KUR, or Kredit Usaha Rakyat. What is it? People's credit facility, like a small credit facility provided by the government. Does it help the digital merchants, or it's just for formal or traditional merchants? So anyone wants to respond to these questions? Sanji.
Santi, you want to respond to the survival rate across like regional countries?
Yeah, I don't have the data offhand, and it's very hard to define, because you define how you mean, what do you mean by survival and success, right? Because like survival, for if the sellers are kind of there but really dormant, not really expanding, just chugging along, do you consider that surviving? Or in some case, how big do you have to grow in order to become success? And what we have found though is that it's also difficult to label them success, because they also have different objectives coming to the digital platforms or becoming digital merchants. And this, what we encounter when we trying to train them up as well. Many of the digital merchants, the different types. Maybe I'll try to give a typology, maybe about 3 or 4 types I can remember. One is definitely the business-oriented ones. These are the ones that, just like any business, they want to grow their business, they want to make profits, they want to expand their sales. And this is somewhat easy to measure the performance, because it's just like business. If their sales is growing, if they're making profits, they're doing well. But there are other types. There are also people who are more experimental in nature. So they just come here, they just want to try out different things. They want to discover themselves. They might be younger in nature. They want to see whether what entrepreneurship is like. Is partly education process. So some of them will do very well and might want to become like full-time business. Some of them, they don't, that's not why they're here. They're here because they want to learn and discover something about themselves. If they discover something about themselves that, okay, I'm not an entrepreneur, I don't want to do this full-time and go do something else. That may seem like a failure from a business perspective, but in terms of self-discovery perspective, it's a success. There are also a lot of the sometimes homemakers, full-time workers, where they don't want to expand their business. They go back to one of the first questions we talk about. They're really happy for this to just be a supplementary income on the side. We have a lot of experience across different countries, including Indonesia, where we try to get them to scale up, but they don't want to scale, and they're happy where they are, and that's all they want to do. And so it's hard to say that they are not, successful as a business person, because this is just part of their life, but it's not the main part of the sole income. So it sort of bring into that kind of, not one size fit all thing. You have to really understand their objective and what they look for in this as well, and kind of cater that they help to that. So it's hard to compare across different countries because the different types of entrepreneurs in different countries.
Thank you, Santi. Maybe Sanji, do you have any response to that question about KUR?
Yeah, let me quickly respond to the question from Pak Asi. Yeah, regarding on the Kredit Usaha Rakyat or the KUR program, yes, it's definitely only like given to merchants who has fulfilled some kind of formality status, because what I can recall is that one of the conditions that you for merchants to be able to apply for KUR is that they have like permit for their some kind of permit for their business activities, which means that they have to go through some kind of formalization process. Regarding on the outreach of this to the digital merchants, unfortunately, we do not have the data, as we do not explicitly ask on whether the type of loans that they receive is specifically from KUR. But we know that this efforts has been ongoing around since the earlier years during the pandemic. So I think around at the end of 2020 or the beginning on 2021, the ministry start to cooperate with some of the e-commerce platform like Shopee and Tokopedia to start to be able to channel their KUR this credit online through their platform, and the applications for this credit is going through this specific platform. And whether that has been contribute the data or the whether it has adopt the practice of using data as collateral, or the more commonly used one by fintech right now is already there or not, we are not sure, but this effort has been going on. But yeah, unfortunately, in our data, we do not capture specifically on this KUR.
Thank you so much, Pak Sanji. With that, let us draw this to conclusion. Thank you so much, all the panelists, Pak Putu Sanjiwacika Wibisana, Maria Monica Wihardja, Santitarn Sathirathai, and also all the participants in the audience, Sherry, Awage, Pak Mangi, Asiolomuan, and everyone else. Thank you so much for the discussion. I think it's been very interesting discussions. With that, I'll hand this over back to Lydia.
Thank you, Acho, and thank you everyone for speaking, the panelists, and also for attending. It's quite early in the morning. Before I close the room, let me draw your attention to our event actually in 1 hour, which is can computer-based testing avoid cheat or reduce cheating at Indonesian national exam? So I'll put that in the chat box. Thanks again, everyone. See you at our other events.